Hey guys, welcome back to the Godot Beginners tutorial series where we are creating Pong as our first game. Um, Last time we created this game arena with a player character that can move up and down. So we have our main menu and we have our player movement up and down, and we can also go back to main. That's what we have so far. Today I'm going to see if we might actually be able to finish most of the basic goals here, but I do want to at least add a second player that you can control, and then I want to add the ball that will move around and bounce off of the player and the walls. If we have time, we can try to do the points and all that, but the main thing today is probably going to be getting the ball to work. So let's get to it. So first off, we'll probably go ahead and add something to the player script so that we can create multiple different players. So to do that, first thing I want to show you is class. So I'll do class name player, extends character body 2D. So by adding this player notation here, this basically just makes it so I can reference this player from pretty much anywhere. So for example, if I was in the game script, I haven't shown this yet, but there's a function called ready that you can do, and this just runs whenever the game starts. But I could create a new player just by typing player.new. Let's call him player 1. Var player 1. And then you could do things that way. But actually, we're not going to do that right now. I just kind of wanted to show that. The main reason I want to do this is so I can add a like a player number. So export var player num equals 1. I guess it should be, I'll go ahead and make these on here float. Okay. There we go. And so what I'm doing here is I'm exporting a integer variable so I can have different players. In this case, it's just going to be player 1, player 2. And if you really wanted to, you could do export range and make sure it's locked to only being 1 or 2. So what I did there was I made it so that you can only select 1 or 2. Those are the only 2 options that are allowed here. And what we'll do is we'll create a ready function. So again, this is something that will run every time this gets instantiated, basically. Okay, and we're going to use the player number in the inspector to determine some things. First of all, I'll need to add some more inputs. Let's go to project settings, input map. And we could, I guess I'll just create a new action. So I'll just call this up 2 and down 2. So these are going to be the up and down controls for player 2. I'll just do the keyboard keys up and down. And then I'll just create some variables here. So var up let's call it a string. Bar down, string. Now I'll show you something called a match statement. So we'll do match player num. This is basically like an if statement. It's kind of like a shorthand for like an if-else statement. So we'll say player num is 1, then up equals up. And there's many different ways of doing this. This is just a quick way of doing it, I guess. Down to okay. And I'll explain what all this is doing here in a second. Okay. So basically what I just did here is we're exporting this player number. So now I can, for example, add a new player. And I'm actually going to save this as a scene. So one thing I maybe haven't mentioned yet is that you can take node trees that you have in your scene view, and you can save them as their own scene so that they're easier to kind of drag and drop into other scenes. So I'm going to create a node 2D here. This is going to be a couple container nodes just to organize things better. So I'll call this players, and then I'll make another one. So I just duplicated that with Control D, and that just creates another node that's a copy of that. I'll call this walls. So just to organize this better, I'm going to move the walls into the walls node, and I'll move the player into the player node here. And then I'll call this player 1. And then I'll drag another copy of the player scene down here and put that under players. Call that player 2. All right. And then I'll change the player number to 2 for player 2 and drag him over here. Okay. So let's first see if this works, and then I'll try to kind of explain it a little bit more. There we go. So now we have 2 players that can kind of move up and down independently. Very good. And let me get rid of that print statement. We don't really need that. Okay. So what just happened? We exported a variable called player num, which is an integer, and this part means that it can only be 1 or 2, basically. If I change this to like a 4, then you could make it anywhere from 1 to 4. But right now we only have 2 players, so I'll just say it can be 1 or 2. And then what we did was we replaced the input mapping. So if you remember, we had up and we had down over here. So we replaced those with variables called up and down, just a string. And then depending on what the player number is at runtime, so the ready function gets called when the player gets loaded into the scene. So depending on what player number we selected over here, it will change which inputs are used for that player. So if the player number is 1, we want to use the ones we started with originally, just up and down, or W and S. And if the player number is 2, we want to use the new ones that we just created, so up to down to. And then this underscore is just basically a error checking. So if for some reason the player number isn't 1 or 2, it will throw an error or a warning saying, hey, there's a problem here. So yeah, so that way we can have different inputs for each player. Yeah. So now that that is working, I think we can cross this one off. Got 2 paddles. So now we need to add the ball, which in terms of Pong, the ball is probably the most complicated part of it. So if we can figure out the ball, then we've basically figured out Pong. So I'm going to add a container called ball just for my own sanity, and I'll add a character body 2D. Call this ball. And as per usual, we get a warning saying we need a collision shape, so we'll add the collision shape 2D. And sorry if I'm going a little bit faster. I'm kind of assuming people have watched the other 2 tutorials at this point. So, but if you have any questions about what I'm doing, please leave a comment. Let me know. I'm debating about a rectangle versus, I guess I'll try a circle this time. I think last time I did it as a rectangle, but we'll give this a shot here. So now we have a round ball, as you can see. And I guess I want to add it so we can actually see the ball. So there's probably a better way of doing this, but I don't know if I want to use polygon. Maybe I will just make it a rectangle or something, but I guess I could do a sprite for now. We'll just make him another little Godot robot guy here. And we'll shrink him down so he's close to the appropriate size at least. Yeah, there we go. So right now this ball doesn't do anything, so we're going to need to add a script. And probably one of the first things we're going to need is some kind of like reset function. So I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to add a variable called starting position. And we can change this around. So this is a vector 2, which if you're not familiar with vectors, vectors basically just got like an x and a y coordinate. If it's a 2D vector, or a 3D vector would have x, y, and z, so it would have 3 coordinates. And this is basically just a position on our screen. So for example, if I click ball, go to transform, and position, this position is a vector 2, so it has an x and a y position. So I can change the x, or I can change the y. So right now what I'm trying to do is just set a starting position for the ball. And since we know the size of our game, it's going to be 1152 by 648, I can just take those and divide them by 2. So if the width is 1152 and I want it to be in the middle, I can divide that by 2, put that in the middle, and then same thing for the y value. And I should probably fix this center, since it's not actually in the center. I'm going to make it a little smaller, like 8 pixels or something. And then maybe I'll try doing it this way. Yeah, I need to subtract the size from it. +4. There's probably better ways of centering things, but basically what I just did was I I did the same 1152 divided by 2. But since this has a width of 8 and the anchor is on the top left, I need to subtract half of the width. So I just subtracted 4 from that value, and that put it in the middle, if that makes sense. Yeah. So go ahead and hit run and make sure that it still works. Yeah, so now we need our ball to kind of move. So one thing I want to do is get this position. So 576 by 324. And I'm just going to save that in a variable. And when this reset function gets called, it's going to set the position equal to the starting position. So for example, if you scored a goal on somebody, then the ball would need to go back to the start. Okay, let's do our ready function. And when the game starts, when this ready function gets called, we want to make sure we're at the starting position. And then let's see here. We'll probably want to have the ball just kind of start going in some kind of random direction. So we could create a function for that. Get starting direction void. So actually this would need to return a vector 2. So this function is going to get a random direction for our ball to kind of start moving in at the start of the game. So there's a couple different ways that you could go about doing this. I'm going to probably use randef range. And then, yeah, there's a couple different ways of doing this. The other thing we could do for now is we could just have it return like -1. That way it just goes straight towards the player. We can update this later. So you could add like a little to-do, make dir random. Yeah, and then in the ready function, let's do. So now we need the ball to move. So we'll do another physics process. And this is going to have a direction. So we'll just say var dir float. And so in the ready function, we're going to set our direction to the starting direction. Okay, and then in the physics process, we're going to have a move and slide, just like the character. And we just need to set our velocity. So let's add a speed. It probably won't want like a constant speed, but for now I'm just going to do a constant speed. We'll say var. Actually, we can just do velocity equals dir times speed. And actually, instead of move and slide, we're probably going to need to do move and collide function. So I'm going to copy some stuff in here real quick and then try to kind of explain what's happening with that in a second. Ba -ba -ba. So this is where we're really kind of getting into the meat of the coding. So if there are questions on this, I can try to add more resources in terms of like coding and stuff. Or if you guys need more like explanations, I can try to do that. So I guess this could go in here. I don't know. It's going to take a little bit of debugging. Bum-ba. Okay. Yeah, let's see what this does real quick. There we go. Nice. So that worked better than I expected. Usually nothing works first try. So, but as you can see, we now have a ball bouncing back and forth. And I'm going to change the collision shape on this back to rectangle. For now, at least. Let me just make this smaller. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Yeah, so what are we doing with the ball here? So basically, we are in the ready function, we're setting the position to the starting position. We are getting a starting direction or random direction. In this case, we're just returning -1, 0. So -1 on the x would be to the left towards the player, and then 0 for y, so no y direction. And then we're setting the velocity to the starting direction times the speed. So that will send the ball to the left, as you can see here, just as so. And then what we're doing is every frame we're basically checking this move and collide. We'll check for any collisions that the object has. And so we're checking to see if we get any collisions. If we don't have any collisions, then we don't want to change anything. We don't want to change the velocity. So we just return, and return just exits the function. I guess we did do that earlier with the starting direction. So if you were curious about what that means, every function has a return type. So for example, the reset function, where it has the little arrow and then void, that means that there is nothing to return. So you could think of the end of this function as basically just an empty return statement. Now, in the example of this direction function, this one returns a vector 2. So you see I have the return keyword, and then I have vector 2 -1, 0. So that's what's happening in the ready function, where I call get starting direction. This value, where I'm calling the function, that turns into this vector 2 -1, 0. So I'm setting the direction variable to the output of this function, if that makes sense. So this move and collide does a similar thing, where it calls move and collide. It returns a collision object or null if there's no collision. And then down here we check if not collision. So in Godot, this basically is the same as like if collision is null. So if there is no collision that is returned, then do nothing. If there is a collision, then this gets skipped. So basically down here, if there's a collision, then we want to reset the velocity. And there's a function called bounce that will give us a new direction for the velocity based on the collision normal. So I know it's kind of a lot to take in. So I could try to explain more in the comments if there's questions on that. But basically, we're just starting movement off by going to the left, and then we don't change anything unless we get a collision. If we do get a collision, then we try to get the new velocity vector from that collision. So bit of physics stuff there, but once you kind of get past that, then you basically have a Pong game. Now you might want to try to vary the way that the ball like bounces off of things. Right now it's kind of like straight back and forth. One way to do this would be to have a better direction. So we're gonna do that. Couple different ways you could do this. I'm trying to think what makes the most sense here for us. I mean, it'd be nice to do it as like an angle. But I might just do it as like a random. So let me just do y_dir equals randef. So I'm going to get a random number, let's say in the range of 20 to, what's the max? 648 divided by 2. And I don't really want it to be 0, but I might just try it out just to see how that works. And then xdir, it's either going to be 1 or it's either going to be 1 or minus 1. So we'll just do 0 or 1. Yeah, that's probably a better way of doing this, but we'll just do that for now. I'm going to print this out. Okay. Let's see what that does here real quick. Oh. Let me do something different then. Okay. Probably shouldn't make the direction higher than 1. Forgot about that. Yeah, so this is actually just going to be minus 1 to 1. Yep. And then seems like my restart is not working. I think I put that in the game script, didn't I? Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of going back and forth here on the code. I'm kind of rewriting all this from scratch, basically. So a little bit convoluted. Let's make sure we can restart that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so what did we do here? Basically, I just copied the quit and restart code from the main menu scene into the game scene. And then for the ball, I just updated this starting direction script or function, so that we can have a random direction each time. So it's either going to send it left or right. So I just did this randi range, which is basically just going to either pick 0 or 1. It's just going to randomly pick one of those two. If it picks 0, we'll just set it to -1. So this basically just picks -1 or 1 for the x direction. And then for the y direction, we're kind of doing the same thing, but we don't mind if the y direction is 0. So we just leave that alone. And for the y, we're also using a float, so it's not always going to be perfectly up or down. It'll give us kind of an angle of values. And then we're returning that vector. So we can kind of run this a few times and see how the ball kind of spawns in, and just see. I'm just pressing the R key here to restart. And in the output, you can see what direction is being sent out. So we're getting a random assortment of different values here. So if I try to play this now, hopefully I can kind of do some different movements here now. And we should be able to see it bouncing off of the walls as well. So if I restart a few times, you can see it kind of hitting the wall. And then if I can get another one hitting the wall here, like that. So you can see it is bouncing off the paddles, and it's also bouncing off the wall. So there we go. And you can get scored on. Yeah, so now that we have the ball kind of working, the next step would be to add the kind of score. So if you go back here, we got the ball bouncing. Yep, so detect when the ball leaves the playfield, assign a point to the player who scored, and track and display the score for each player. So let's go ahead and start working on that. I'm going to add another label here. Call this score 1. And I'll just call this, I don't know. It could just be a number. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Make this a little bigger. And we'll go ahead and I guess we can, now if we want it to be on the left, maybe I'll just add a little bit of a buffer here, so it's not like completely like off screen or whatever. And I guess we could add it to the center instead. That might be better. And then we'll do the same for player 2 here. I'm going to anchor this to the top right. And then I'm just going to kind of manually drag it down a little bit. And do left alignment. Again, I'm not trying to get this perfectly aligned. There's obviously ways that that can be done, but for this, I'm just trying to get it kind of close. Yeah. So if we hit run now, You'll see we have the kind of 0, 0 there. And now basically what we want to do is detect when the ball kind of leaves the arena, and we want to update the score depending on whose side it went into. So I'm just going to create a new container here. Call this areas. And I'm going to add something called an area 2D. And I'll show you what this does here in a second. As you can see, we have a warning that we need a collision shape. So we'll add a collision shape 2D. Create a rectangle. And we'll go ahead and just make this kind of big. However big you want. Doesn't really matter. I want to kind of differentiate it from the walls, so I'm just going to make it kind of larger like that. And we'll call this area 1. And we'll just make another one here, area 2. And we'll just do that. So what does this do? Basically, this will monitor objects as long as this monitoring is turned on. And if any collision objects enter it, it will be able to emit a signal. So we're going to do area entered. Or I guess we could do body entered. So the difference here is area entered would detect other area 2Ds, whereas body entered would detect a physics body 2D, such as our ball, which is a character body 2D. So we'll connect the body entered signal. I'm just going to connect it to the game script. And we'll do the same for area 2, body entered. And for now, I'm just going to have it print body. So you'll see it passes in this body parameter here, which is the body that was detected. So hit play. And you'll see there's some stuff getting printed out here. If I hit restart, when the ball goes through, it prints out this ball down here. And just to show you collision layers real quick, I'm going to, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll save that for another tutorial. Basically, I want to print body.name. Or instead of body.name, maybe I'll show you groups. So in Godot, next to the signals tab, there's a groups tab. I'm going to create a new group called ball. Make it global. And now we can actually check something. So we'll say if body dot is in group ball, then print body. So now when we run this, we should only see the print statements for the ball, whereas before it was detecting the other objects such as like the walls. But since we only want to detect the body, or sorry, we only want to detect the ball, we can use this group method to do that. So just a handy little tip about groups. Yep, so now let's go ahead and I'm going to create a class for my ball. Class name ball. And I'm going to show you something real quick, which is I can create an export variable on my game script. I'll call this export var ball. And I can assign it to the class that I just created called ball. And I can actually assign nodes through here. So I'm in the inspector, click assign, and then ball. So I now have a reference to the ball inside of my game script, which can be very useful. So one thing I wanted to do was so if the area is entered, I can call the reset function on my ball. So for now, I'm just gonna do. There's a couple different things I could do, but I guess I'll just do something like this. So I'll just show you, I guess, another way of doing this besides using groups. It's kind of another method that you could use. So now the ball should automatically reset to the center every time it kind of goes through. It seems like the angle is not getting reset though, so let me try to fix that. That's kind of weird. Maybe I'll do randomize. And then I'll do dir. See if that fixes it. There we go. Huh. It's still interesting. Seems like doing the same angle every time. Well, we'll figure that out. Anyway, you can see the ball is kind of respawning in the middle. Let's see. So, yeah, basically what I did here was, since I'm referencing this class, I can check if it's that class type. So up here in the ball script, we did class name ball. And then in the game, we can now use that to check if it's that type. And since we're doing that, we can also call methods. So we can do body.reset, which, as we know, will reset the position of the ball. So now we have this ball that kind of goes back and forth, and it will reset in the center every time it goes through there. Now we need to increment this score every time the ball kind of gets scored on. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to export these here just like I did for the ball. So I'll do score1, which is a label. And now I can assign that to this label. And export var score2. And do the same thing for that label. So score1 should increment if player 1 scores. Score2 should increment if player 2 scores. So I'm going to write a new function. Well, maybe we'll do that after this. We'll do score1.text, and actually I'll probably just track a score1 label, score2 label equals 0. So I'm just creating an actual integer for each of the scores, and we'll just use that to keep track. and then we'll assign those to the labels. So score1 label.text equals score1. I guess we have to do a thing here like that. What I'm doing here is so the .text is the actual text property of the label. So like on the right over here where it says 0. So the text property is a string, so I have to assign it to a string. And then in Godot, this is the syntax for basically if you ever use Python, like f strings, stuff like that. This is how you would basically insert a variable into the string. So when I do %d, that means that it's a placeholder for an integer. And then when I do %score1, that just inserts that score1 into that slot. So I'm just converting the score into a string. You could also just do str score1, and that would do the same thing. So yeah, we'll go ahead and so if so if area 2 is entered, we actually want to increase score1. So score1 plus equals 1. And then we'll do the opposite for this one here. And let's just see if that works. I got an error. Text string. I didn't assign that one, so let's do that. If you change the name of the variable in the script, so when I change this from score1 to score1 label, it got rid of the exports, so you have to reassign them if you change the variable name. So we'll save that. And there we go. So now my player is scoring, but we have an issue, which is that the ball keeps going the same direction. So let's try to figure out why that is happening. I think we can just delete this and call reset here. Yeah, I'm not sure why this is. It's probably because I wasn't resetting the velocity, so I think that should work now. Okay, I think, yeah, it seems like it's working. Nice. So the issue there was when I was resetting the position, I was not resetting the velocity because I forgot to copy this line. So that's why the velocity wasn't getting randomized. So yeah, now we have a basic Pong game, and I have collision shapes turned on, so let me turn that off here for a second, and we can play a quick Pong game here. So now you can see ball kind of going back and forth, and if I score here, it should go from 1 to 2. And then if he scores, he should get a point. So yeah, this is basically Pong. Obviously, you can do quite a bit more fine tuning. You can add game over screen. You can play around with the velocities of the player and of the ball. We found a nice little bug there, which I probably forgot about. So we try to fix that before we hop off here. I believe we just need to. We might have to mess with the collision layer after all, but let me see here. Ba ba ba. There's a couple different ways you could probably fix this. Yeah, I have to think about that one. There's other different ways that you can like lock the position, and there might be something with the collision layers and masks. Let me see. Where's the ball scene? I didn't save that one, did I? Yeah, let me save this. Da da da. Gotta export that again. Bana. So we could put the ball on its own collision layer potentially. That might work. And then the walls. Let's see. Player. Might be all we need to do actually. It's a little bit hard to recreate that situation, but yeah, we just need to make sure that the play area is still detecting that. So let's make sure we can detect layer 2. And we can actually probably turn off layer 1. I can explain this here in a second. There we go. Yeah, so this is a pretty common issue that you might run into with the collision layers. The best way I can explain it is this first value here, collision layer. That's the object that that's the layer that your object kind of exists in. Whereas the mask is the layers that this object is scanning for collisions. So for example, in the area, I had to make sure that it was had layer 2 enabled for the mask because I changed the collision layer of the ball to layer 2. So the area is not going to detect any objects that aren't in the mask layers that it's scanning, if that makes sense. So I have to make sure that layer 2 is enabled on the area mask. And yeah, I can link some tutorials and stuff for that too in the description, but that's basically what that's doing. And I think by changing the collision layers of the objects, hopefully that'll help with some of the weird shenanigans. Now you can still pinch it down, but it should hopefully not move the yeah, it shouldn't move the paddle anymore. So there we go. Alrighty, so that's basically Pong. And let me see where we're at with our goals here. So we detected the ball and the score, and we are displaying the score. Yeah, so we finished all the basic goals for this project. I don't know how long this video is, but I think the first one was like half an hour, second was like an hour. So, within a couple hours probably, you were able to download a game engine, make a pretty basic game, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you guys want to see any more tutorials for Godot, and if you want to continue anything with the Pong series, we could do a video on adding like a AI, or some sounds, or like a game over screen. Uh, Really, the sky is kind of limit from here in terms of what you can do. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.